May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today, I'm going to read to you excerpts from Shunryu Suzuki lectures. And these are excerpts that have the phrase most important. And here I'll read you. It's a page on Cuke.com in the lecture area. It's also on ShunyuSuzuki.com, a file. Here, I'll read you why this is here. The phrase most important is found in Shunryu Suzuki lectures. Now, one thing I want to say is that this was done in 2011, so that's 14 years ago, and there's a number of additions to the lecture archive, so this needs to be updated. So it is not complete, but it'll be, let me guess, 94% of them. There are 224 instances found in the 2010 collection of Shunryu Suzuki's lectures, 85 of most important point, and 87 of most important thing. 10 years ago or so, I quickly compiled a list with a macro that captured the most important thing, along with the line above and below it. SFZC Abbott, Steve Stuckey, wanted to see that list for a teaching that he was doing, so I went back and did the wider search and included the phrase in context more carefully than before. Above each selection is the file name of the lecture from which it came and the location. The name indicates the date or approximate date. The complete lectures are in some cases notes from a lecture, may be found at ShunyuSuzuki.com. You may email me to get the username and password. Oh, that doesn't exist anymore. Enjoy, DC. Okay. So here, oh yeah, there used to be a username and password for ShunyuSuzuki.com. Can you believe that? That's because I was under a little more heat from Zen Center for making all of his lectures and everything widely available to the public for free when there was cold hard cash that could possibly be more that could be squeezed out of them. So here we go. From from 1961 December. That's the first wind bell. Once when Yakuzan Zenji was asked to talk about Buddhism, he said, "There is the teacher of scriptures, there is the scholar or philosopher of Buddhism, and then there is the Zen master. Do not acknowledge me." Day after day, from morning until night, he behaved like a Zen master. Why don't you acknowledge me is what he meant. To practice Zen with disciples, to eat with them and sleep with them, is the most important thing for a Zen master. So he said, "Why don't you acknowledge me? I'm a Zen master, not a teacher of the scriptures or a philosopher." That's interesting. That story, God, I was just dealing with it a few days ago. I can't even remember what context. All right, number 2. This is from 1963 Windbell, April. Sokoji, San Francisco. In Japan, we call this era civilized life the instant age because of the prevalent idea that quick solutions to problems are possible without difficulty. This idea takes many forms: instant coffee, instant sukiyaki, operations for physical disease, pills for mental illness. In spite of all the benefits from our civilization, it is difficult for people to remain strong enough to be happy physically and mentally. Why? Perhaps because a most important point is missing. Support from without is sometimes too strong, sometimes too weak, sometimes only partial, and sometimes harmful to other parts. The operation must be successful, and in addition, the patient must survive. The important point is to arrange ourselves from inside. Orientation from our inmost nature is wanted. The problem is how to make use of our civilization and not be ruined by it. The solution to this problem is zazen. By sitting, we have to resume to our own nature, and by great activity, we should acquire absolute freedom. Number 3, this is from 1964, a Windbell from May of 64. Sokoji, San Francisco. In China, one of the most important practices for a Zen student was physical labor or to work on building a temple. This kind of work was thought to be wrong activity for monks in India. These Chinese monks must have appreciated a cup of tea after their hard work. It was from this practice and the certain deep way in which their appreciation was expressed that the tea ceremony developed. Okay. Number 4, from August 1964, Windbell. Sokoji, San Francisco. Summary of Reverend Suzuki's Sesshin Lectures by Trudy Dixon. To understand what the traditional way of Buddhism is and to actualize it in one's own life are the most important points in being a sincere Buddhist. One of the most important phrases in these chants is, "May I, along with all sentient beings, achieve renunciation of the 3 attachments." Renunciation can also be translated emptiness or detachment. Now, I should have put a ... between those two. I mean, those are 2 separate entries, but I should have indicated that they're not next to each other. I do that with like a line that has ... So there we had most important there. And here we are again, 1964, November, Windbell, Sokoji, San Francisco. Here, everything as it is means everything as it should be. No, I obviously didn't need to write that twice, or maybe he said it twice and it's just verbatim. So I'll read it again. Here, everything as it is means everything as it should be, because everything as it is in the usual sense always should be negated, one thing after another. Even though we are concentrated on one thing, the result of the practice of negating everything as it is in the usual sense is what we mean by everything as it is. The way everything should be accepted as the way everything is. The acceptance should be the most important point in Nagarjuna's middle way. You notice it started off saying, "Hear everything as it is" means, he's obviously commenting on what was before. And here's a second entry from that windmill. Bodhidharma's intention in coming to the West cannot be understood by people who seek Buddhism without knowing Buddhism is everywhere. Salt is white chemical, nearly the same as sugar in appearance. If we do not know which is which, we try a little on some food. We do not take the salt alone, but always with food, as something other than a white chemical, as maybe the most important seasoning in our actual life. It is in oceans, rivers, plants, trees, in everything. It is in every food we take. Without salt, nothing exists. We say a pickle is salty and that cake is sweet, but in cake there is salt. It makes the cake more sweet. But he said if you want to know which is which, you try it with food. No, you just stick your finger in it and it'll get a little, and you can tell by putting that on your tongue. So here we go. Number 6. This is from a lecture 650708. So July 8th, 1965, Los Altos. So scientific truth will help us a lot, but we should know that it is not perfect, and perfect knowledge of our life is already we have, but we don't know. It is difficult to give some interpretation of our life, so we should study science, not to escape from the difficulty we have. So in our study, the most important point is self-confidence, to live in the world, to survive in this world as a human being. This is most important point, not as some supernatural being, but just as a human being. This is the most important thing to practice Zazen, transmitted from Buddha to us. And now we have the 7th instance. Hey, I can see that I'm going to get through what? 1/10 of it? Yeah, maybe I should go back and make it complete. Oh, God. Or get somebody else to do that. Hey, who wants to do that? It'd be very easy to do. I can send you all the lectures, and you just search for most important, and then take it out in context like this. Okay, number 7, from 1965, July 26th, Sokoji, San Francisco. Recently, I find many problems concerning to religious problem, such as psychology or LSD, or the problem of how to bring about complete peace. These problems are most important problems in present day, I think. In our system of Zen philosophy, I'm not emphasizing philosophy, but when we have discussion, there must be some system, or else our discussion will not result in anything. So I just want to present you some system. As you know, our problem, the most important basic construction of culture may be science. Science is very important, but science just study or treat outward object as object of study. That second part again, that should be separated with a ... Oh, here's another, the same lecture, most important again. He says most important 3 times. So science will bring use some universal truth, which is like a telescope. You will have a vast sight of mind, which is universal, as if you see San Francisco from Tamalpais. You can see everything. You can see the best sight of San Francisco from Tamalpais. But that kind of study, of course, it helps you, but you'll not be so interested in the science. Listen, this is hard to read because he's sort of rambling here, and there's partial word. It's not as interesting as your mind in general, maybe is what he's saying. Our most concerning problem for us is, what is mind? What should I do with myself? What my mind is the most important problem. So, and religion will only give you the answer. What should you do with your mind? This kind of mind is the mind religious people are concerned with very much. Yeah. So, what should I do with myself? With my mind is the most important problem. And here we are again in the same lecture in the questions and answers. Suzuki says, but that you is problem, small you or big you. And everybody laughs. And the student says, I know, who is using it? And Suzuki says, this is the most important point. If you do not know what is you, to use something is, laughs and laughter, it's crazy. So this point is very, very, very important, and this point is missing. So it is necessary to make this point very, very clear, because almost all people mixed up on many things. So they will waste their time a lot. Not only waste of time, but also it is suffering, actually. Don't you think so? And just to remind you, what all that was about was knowing who you are. If you don't know who you are, it causes suffering. Hey, my grandmother had two people help her, Faye and Odell, that were always there when I was a little kid, and when I'd be older, coming back, they'd still be there. And Odell was a minister, and he had a church. Oh, he lost his church because of having some affair or something. That happens. Yes. Anyway, Odell was waxing the floor to the small dining area in her house. And I was back from probably from Zen Center, this could have been 67 or 69. And he and I were talking, and it was, he appreciated what I was doing with meditating and all that. And he said, you see, the problem is that a man don't know who he is. And I went, wow. This guy was always here. And I told Granny, I said, good Lord, Granny, Odell is so wise. And she said, yep, he's a good darky. Well, I'm sure you loved that. All right. And all right. Now, number 9 is from a 1965 lecture, July 28th. Sokoji, San Francisco. As someone asked me last night, how do how is it possible to help others? Or what is the right way to help others? To help others is the most important point. No, the most important point in helping others is to actualize the Bodhisattva's way in its true sense. So you can actualize Bodhisattva's way in your management of Zen center or in your management of a monastery or a temple. If you actualize his way, that is also Dana Prajna Paramita. That is to help others, to give something, to give most valuable things to the society. If you actualize their way in your actual life, that is the most valuable contribution to society. Even though you give something, if you give it, something is the wrong way, it will create more trouble. So just to give something is not our way. It was given, everything was treated in the right way, in the Bodhisattva's way. And from that same lecture, now I did separate these. So the most important point is not to be one-sided. Practice and study are both important, but it's not possible for anyone to, achieve many things. So as I said, to have some cover is very important point. Cover should not be used. Well, that must be misunderstood. When you do... Oh, I see, right. Cover should not be used. You shouldn't use a cover. When you do something, you should take off the cover. If you want to boil something by covering it, you will get into confusion. Cover is, for us, the cover is the Shobo Genzo. This is the perfect understanding of our way. But perfect understanding will not work. It's too perfect. But it will keep dust from the pan. And if you put the cover on your pan, you can use it whenever you want to use your pan. So it's very important to have a cover to it. Wow. Boy, did he contradict himself in that. But man, I'd like to look at that paragraph and maybe try to make some sense out of it. But, I mean, we can make sense out of parts of it, but the whole thing. Or maybe, I'm not real bright. I'm just good. All I do is repeat things and bring them to you. So here's number 10, 650729. So that's July 29th, 1965. So the most important point is to acknowledge exactly what is Buddha nature. Buddha nature is not small ego. It is big ego, which is observing what you do and accepting what you do always. Whatever you do, he will say, that's good. Nothing wrong with it, he may say. So you see, this is how people wonder how religion came to be with ideas. And Suda Dionysus said, to him, the just seeing it in terms of beings, of entities, he says, you can't even talk to those who are confined to seeing, this subject in terms of entities. And you see right there how it's very hard to talk without creating entities. So he's saying, so the most important point is to acknowledge what is Buddha nature. The Buddha nature is not small ego. It is big ego, which is observing what you do and accepting what you do always. Whatever you do, he will say, that's good. Nothing wrong with it, he may say. So you see, that sort of thing comes down to, there's a man in me. You see. Number 11. From 1965, July 30th. So Koji. So the most important thing is to understand our true mind, our inmost nature in our practice. How we understand our actual mind is the most important point, or should be the most important point. That is why Zen emphasizes to live on each moment. And number 12 from July 30th, 1965, so Koji. Student G has a question. Does it matter when you want to communicate whether you want to try to help the other person who obviously, and then it says one or two words, let's guess, is wrong? And Suzuki says, it is the most important thing is to understand you yourself is the most important thing. And the students, another student says, fine. And after that, Suzuki says, after that, I don't know. You know after that, you will know after that. And then student I says, should one who is studying Buddhism have a relation to the world? Suzuki Hiroshi, I think Buddhists should have deep concern about those movement. Buddhists should concern if it is, Buddhists should be concerned if it is, right. But we should not be mixed up. Just the organization itself and our desire to help others. When he says, I think Buddha should have deep concern about those movements. Maybe he means like the peace movement. And the best way may be to allow the true spirit of a peace movement, yeah, there we are, for people is the best way, I think. Well, all right. Student I says, well, how do you, and Suzuki says, in its true sense. So he's continuing what he was saying. So the best way to allow the true spirit of a peace movement for people in its true spirit, for people is the best way, I think, in its true sense. So the most important things is to spread Buddhism, to make them known what is Buddhism is the best way. We cannot do it by number. We cannot use everyone's, we cannot abuse everyone's right by number. That leaves me behind. This is a very delicate question, I think. And then later in that same question and answer period, but the most important thing is to realize the oneness of the human being. This problem should not be cut off from other problems. Sometimes, people do two opposite things. On the one hand, they work for civil rights, and on the other hand, they're doing something opposite. This kind of mistake is pretty common. So even something good should not be cut off from our life as a whole. All right. All right. Number 13. These things should take them and edit them into what you think he's saying, if it's one of those where, like that. We do have light edits of the lectures. We're still creating more. Wendy Piercing is making them with Peter Ford, and I look at them, but they're good. And Shundo David Hayes is involved too. There are edits of every lecture we've got. Like there's all the verbatim lectures, which means we have the tape they could check. They all have, I think they either have light edits or they have other types of edits that, there have been a lot of different edited versions, but we're doing it. We all have a light edit or a minimum edit. And personally, I would edit them more than the minimum edit. And I'd like to do that, but, just getting it down there and presented where you can see it all, that's good. But I'm working on other stuff that if I don't do, it won't happen. So like in these books out about Tasa horror stories, and there's more like that. So, incidentally, Tasa horror stories, the first book, is it's in page proofs. Now I'll get the page proofs soon. The audiobook is completed. God, it's a long time until September. Anyway, man, they really got this. Well, I know one thing. I've done some print-on-demand books. I looked into it. Like, if you want your book to be in a library journal, in the first place, they want it 9 months before it's published. And I think Publishers Weekly wants it 6 months before it's published. So that's just normal sort of timelines. Nice to have a publisher. They do all that stuff. Thank you, Monkfish. All right, here we are. Number 13, August 5th, 1965, Los Altos. So, if those who can sit in right posture and right way own everything and have no difficulty in our life, that is why we emphasize form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The most important point of this sutra is those 8 characters. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. And, of course, he's talking about the Heart Sutra. All right, number 14, the 12th of August, 1965, Los Altos. I want to explain about our posture we take. When you sit, left foot is on your right side and right foot is on your left side. This is full lotus posture. When we cross our legs like this, although we have right and left foot, it has actually become one. So it means oneness of the duality, not two, not one. This is the most important teaching, not two and not one. Our body and mind is not two and not one. Yeah, I like that. Not two, not one. I like it because I like things that I completely don't understand because they just leave me without holding on to anything. I prefer that. Oh, there's a lot from that talk. All right, here we go. Here's the next one. If you try to keep this posture, you will find some difficulty in taking your natural breathing. But by the time you get accustomed to the right posture, you can take natural deep breathing and pull your chin in. This is a very important point. If you sit in this way with your head tilted up, you will never gain strength in your posture. This is a rather dreamy posture. You're dreaming of something. The most important point is to own your physical body. If you take this posture, slumping, you will lose your body. Your body is somewhere else, and your mind too. Your mind and body are wandering somewhere. This is not the way. We must exist right here. The key point is this. You must have your mind and body. Everything should exist in the right place. When even existence is in the right place, in the right way, there is no problem. But if this, the microphone, exists somewhere else, it doesn't serve its own purpose. So everything should be located in the right place in the right way. That is the conclusion of Buddhism. How everything exists in the right place is when we have our body and mind everything else will exist in the right place. So the point is to have our body and mind is the most important point. There is no need to change the place they exist. The most important is for us to exist in the right place, in the right way. If we exist in the right place, in the right way, everything exists in the right place, in the right way. Well, well, I'll be sure to stay in the right place in the right way. But remember, this all follows him talking about Zazen posture. So I'm going to read one more. Number 15, out of 224. This could go on forever. I could just make, how many? 10? I could make, and when I get all the new editions, maybe 20 more of these. Okay, number 15, 65-1007, which is October 7th, 1965, Los Altos. To practice Zazen in this way with a group is the most important thing for Buddhism and for us. There is nothing so important than this practice for us because this practice is the original way of life. Without knowing the origin of things, we cannot appreciate the result of our effort. So, that was, it says number 15, but as you notice, some lectures had most important a number of times. So it's just it's the 15th lecture or entry that had most important in it. So that's interesting, huh? Danny Parker put out that book of Ed Brown's lectures, The Most Important Point. That was, a whole book named after one of these. That was maybe the ultimate most important, because that's when Suzuki told Ed the most important point is to find out what the most important point is. Okay. So, can you hear the bird? There's a nice little bird outside. This has been a Cuke Audio Podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Doggett Bandita, Filan Manecita, and dear lovely Katrinka, who arrived on Thursday from America after having been gone 38 days. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.